the police department, cybersecurity, IT, like just these really heady issues. Oh, hey, Lana, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you so much for joining. I hope it's okay that we got rolling.
Sure thing, of course.
Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Anyway, so I thought it was helpful because I was, I was admittedly concerned that we had heard nothing. And I still carry a little concern about that, but not because I feel that the audit committee should be prioritizing Mac's requests necessarily. Does that kind of make sense? But in an effort to follow through, I did today send an email to the director of the director of internal audits. And I just wanted to recognize that I had watched the audit committee meeting and that it provided a lot of context for me about the work that happens, the work that he's responsible for the city. And that I recognized that he had made comments about how issues of compliance really there has to be paths to accountability that are internal systems balances, right? So directors and staff need to provide those processes and ensure that those processes are happening. And so in my follow-up, and I'm happy to share this with anybody if they'd like to see it, I asked him if he would take a few minutes to expound on that and how I might be able to present that information to the broader commission. And also just any comments that he might have about, or advice that he might have for us about how we might achieve a better system of checks and balances with decision making and how our ordinance and how we work and fulfill the ordinance in which we work under. So hopefully I'll hear back. I also hope that it's an effort for us to show up, professionally, that we made this request, that we recognize the breadth of the work he leads, but that we still want feedback. And I invited him to come and talk to our group at our next commission meeting if he's interested. It's short notice, but it might be interesting just to have a little bit of time with him if he is willing, and I have no idea, to just understand the process of the department of, the audit committee and what they do. I see a new message. That sounds awesome, Joan. Oh, thank you, Lisa. Okay. So that's kind of where that's at. Does anyone have any questions, comments, thoughts, feedback? I don't want to belabor this. I think we've given it a lot of time. It was an action that we took, and I was proud of us for doing it. I think that if nothing else, it sent a message that we are taking our roles seriously and that we recognize that, the opportunities that we may be missing currently, and that people are, letting us know as they're resigning are serious, and we take them serious. So I think that all in all, I hope that it was of value, not only for us to feel empowered to take action, but also for those who are doing decision making and potentially excluding us from that decision making. So comments?
Yeah, thank you so much for offering to have him come to a meeting next week. I hope he comes, but because it will give us a chance to hear from him and have some empathy, or gain some perspective about even what you learned in, the moments you watched this audit commission meeting they had. But also, if people feel brave enough, they can ask or comment about, why we feel the audit for MAC is necessary, So I think it'll open a door for us. And even if it doesn't, it puts faces to the people that are in MAC, just in case he gets another letter later on.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think, being that we didn't even receive an email reply is a little concerning. But hopefully this just reminds him that we're here and that we, see ourselves as a part of this system and recognize the work that he does in the context of all of this, but that we wish for a path to better accountability. And I also noticed the other thing that I noticed when I watched the audit committee meeting was that Director Reed had time on the calendar with the internal audit committee auditor. So he was referenced several times. Now, granted, he's an internal employee and a director level employee, but he, when we had come to him as the interim director of the Department of Civil Rights, and we told him issues that we were facing with our commission, and he had told us there's through lines there. We face that with the commissions that I oversee as well. It tells me that he's bringing forward potentially commission concerns also to the audit committee, so that we may not be like hollering in like a vacant field to no one.
I do feel, I feel like I'm glad he was referenced because he is a part of that police commission. So, that's clearly what's possibly taken over a lot of the audits committee's time. And he has some insight then on how they work and if the process feels smooth or if it doesn't, or if who's the best person to talk to. Like he may be able to help us or, help Mac later on too in that regard.
I agree. He's a great person for us to have a relationship with. And I look forward to, what some of those ideas might be as far as how do we maybe bring commission leadership together to address issues rather than, trying to work up the pole internally so much. Like there just feels like there could be some, if nothing else, just like good leadership networking and, what do passionate people who really care about civic duty in a specific way, how do we learn from each other? How do we come together? Where do we find strengths in numbers, et cetera? So I think he's going to be a good person to know. And Janae, we told you guys this, like, he just was really delightful and really positive and found stuff that made sense. So it was a good problem solver. Any other questions about item number 1? Comments? Okay. The next item, go ahead, Mary. Yeah.
I feel like the clerk's office would want me to remind you guys that you're not supposed to be having a conversation in the chat. It's a public meeting, remember, and people who call in cannot see the chat. So it's, sorry, but.
I'll be transparent and read the comments and then we'll stop after that. Mandy and Janae, you both look so glam. God bless you, girl. Thank you, Lisa. That sounds awesome. Joan, done. But thank you. Okay. I'm not even being snarky. Like, we'll just get it straight and we'll keep it moving. But that was all, nothing was exchanged that was of any importance. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is just to talk about filling vacancies. So this is another one of these very concerning issues that we have, that we are not receiving applicants that are representational of a diverse community, that don't speak to concerns that we have about equity and representation for various wards. However, I can report that we did have one application that came through in this last round. Someone that Janae and Mandy and I are going to be interviewing on Thursday and are hopeful about. So this is a, I don't know, what is the metaphor? The little engine that could, tortoise in the hare, I don't know. But we're slowly but surely, as we're being like really, really specifically saying like we want a caliber of commissioner that's going to be representational and come from wards that we have concerns for, that the whole city has concerns for. It's just difficult to advance in a quick way. And I can talk about some of the other ways that we're approaching that, but go ahead, Lisa.
I just wanted to acknowledge that we have had some success in the past in being able to recruit. So I don't want to rain on the parade. I think it's great and I'm glad. I just know that the challenge hasn't necessarily always been the recruitment piece. It's been the retaining piece and it's been the impact piece. And anyway, I think we all know it. I just want to call it out.
As you should. We would not be in this situation with as many vacancies if we didn't have some systemic issues we face. Thank you that's an important piece. And so it isn't business as usual, for one thing, in my opinion. But at the same time, I think I would like to balance the belly aching and the trying to make change quickly or even slowly with advancing good work that we know we can do. So, and I really want to say that it's all of you who inspire me to have a change of heart. I'm getting stuck, admittedly, and still battle with that a little bit. But at the same time, I'm like, no, this is a really talented group and more talented people are coming. So let's really imagine what we can do. We are not agency-less. We are not without the ability to do some really incredible things. So let's find that space and advance it, and work together and call those things out whenever we have the opportunity to. So thank you for that. So the second item is that Tina has very generously connected me with the Dean of Fine Art from the Minneapolis College, who I collaborate with anyway in my professional world, but I just have not had the time to connect with to talk about potential student positions on the commission. So that is happening Thursday, I think at 4:30 or something like that. And she's super enthusiastic. And she's got, I mean, think about the people who attend Minneapolis College for Fine Art programs. What a wealth, what a breadth of talent. Like that could be a really cool place for us to find some great, talented people. So I feel really happy about that. And thank you, Tina, for going the extra mile to make that connection and set that up. Secondly, Ahava reached out to me. She has been in conversation with Purpich High School. She would like to advance an opportunity or something or conversation about how we might be able to advance students in participating in the commission. So I don't know what that looks like, but yay that she wants to offer some capacity with her networks. Jeff?
Yeah, with both education groups, is there opportunity also to look at like staff and teachers? In addition to students, I love the idea of students, but if you're going to talk to those folks, you just say, hey, if you have some staff or teachers, art teachers, even in the high schools would be, I think, wonderful representatives, potentially.
That's so smart. Thank you, Jeff. Yes, I will include that, and I appreciate you bringing that to my attention because I think when we have conversations about representation, we clearly really want to prioritize BIPOC youth on this commission, but we also don't always understand what it is that we wish for them to do and want to have a clear understanding of that. But definitely an educator, Ahava works in education, Calvin did work in education, and having that representation, I think, is important for our group. So yeah, when I talk to Christine and when I talk to Ahava, I'll bring that forward, that, having educators come to the commission would be welcome. Lisa.
Just a quick question on if there's anything we should find out potentially from the clerk's office about a pathway and recommendation for people who might be serving shorter time periods. I know Mary had advanced an idea about, well, you appoint them and they resign and then somebody else applies, and there's like the pathway she thought could be most easily achieved had to do with people stepping up, getting appointed, and then just resigning if it was a tighter time frame. But I wondered if, as we were thinking about Purpich School or Minneapolis College, if there was a way for an appointment to be relative to a role rather than a person. So
the short-term way you could do it is, and Tina would have to do the math on this, but when people resign, they're actually, oftentimes, they're resigning mid-term. And so their term then expires, like if like Janae, I can't remember. So if Janae resigned a year and a half after she became a commissioner, and she had a full 3-year term and not a partial term that she had filled, then the person sliding into Janae's slot would be actually sliding in for a shorter period of time. So that's kind of the short-term solution. The long-term solution is a change to the ordinance, which is not impossible, but would take months and months of work to do. So but I'm guessing that Tina looked at it, she could figure out how many partial terms you're filling, and you could slot students into those.
So would an action item then be to ask Tina when she has time? I've always felt nervous because you guys could do so much stuff. But to ask Tina then to just make us a chart of like what the term limits are right now and what the vacancies are, so we can just look at that.
Yes, I can, because right now the problem is when people resign in the middle of a term, the clerk's office still considers them on the commission until their seat is filled.
Okay.
So yeah, so like all the people that resigned before their term was up, they are still supposed to be participating in the commission. So yeah, so I can give you that, because there's probably like 5 or 6 seats right now that still have partial terms. So I can provide that for you.
That is a really attractive way to approach youth or people who maybe have less than a 3-year commitment to offer. I like that strategy. Does everybody like that strategy, to consider that? Okay.
Yeah. They can also reapply or, nominate themselves again for specific seats. So I think that's great.
And that's usually, like, in my experience, it'd be a metric of success if that was competitive to do. But at this moment in time, it isn't. So, yeah, there's a path to a longer seat. That's pretty accessible. So, okay, great. Any other comments about, our approach to filling vacancies? I say let's look and see what Tina, let's refresh our minds about what's available in the terms. We have 2 seats filled with Jeff and Mari, which is great. We have another really good lead to fill a potential 3rd seat, which I'm hoping works out. So then what are we looking at? Like maybe 3 to 4 partial seats, something like that. That it feels a little less overwhelming to me at this point. So, okay. All right. And then of course our deadline for application is extended to the end of February. If we choose to extend it, Tina, I mean, can we just continue to request to extend it until we are at 100%? Is there any rules about that?
No, I just email Anita at the end of the month if you guys want to extend it another month, or, we can just keep doing that until you fill all the seats. I think when I received Janae's, if we fill this seat coming up, there'll still be 6 vacant seats that we have to fill after Janae leaves. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So there you have it. And we can talk about this further in the work plan when we get there. So unless anyone has anything else, I suggest we move on. Okay. So exec nominations. We're going to have to accomplish that formally at our next meeting. It is my understanding, and I sent this in my email, I'll be nominated for chair. We will not have a vice chair position at the moment with Janae leaving. Lana has generously offered to assume the secretary role. And then we have Mandy, Jeff, and potentially Lisa. I know Lisa and I have been going back and forth, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, and you don't have to answer this here. But just to know that Lisa is considering and being really generous about staying on and sort of thinking about it. Is that right?
It's basically, if you have an opening and you need a body, I can be your body. I'm also very happy if somebody else steps up and wants to participate. And if they do, and that happens, I can still be your history resource if you need one, I don't vanish if that's the case. So it's really just about wanting to make sure we have a pathway to people having opportunities to serve and to grow in the commission. And I've been around a long time now, so.
That's very reassuring. And how about this? If you stay on for now, I will work extra hard to try to get some more increased enthusiasm about serving on exec so that you can focus more on your ALT work that you do so well. How about that? Okay, can I get a hand for Lisa? Okay, thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate it. All right, so I don't think that there's anything more than that. We may be able to offer, if there's a new person who comes on, we do have some availability yet, so we'll just see. And we can mention it when we nominate the slate. And I will follow up with Tina, maybe Mary, just about how to accomplish that correctly. Because I know we're going to nominate the entire slate and there's a little bit of process yet. So we'll work out those kinks before we meet. Sound good? Any comments, feedback? Okay. The 2020 work plan, drum roll, please. sometimes you just have to wake up in the middle of the night and imagine what's possible. And kind of turn your perspective, turn your frown upside down, and recognize that while it's really important for us to speak truth to what we believe is should be, and I'm proud of us for having done that, there's also work to be done. And so I went through and wrote up a really ambitious work plan based on a lot of the feedback that we had and conversations that we've had. And I don't know that we are going to be, that we can't possibly advance this, obviously, this meeting. But I think what we can do this meeting is resume ALT work, provide this draft, and ask for there to be an expectation that this gets done by next meeting, so that we have like a Q1 work plan completion. I'm curious how you all feel about that cadence of advancement for the work plans. And we can go over, exec, but
I feel like maybe this isn't now my time to speak, because I won't be moving forward with you all, but in my mind, number 4 should be spoken on at the meeting, even if Mary has to give a brief on each thing. Our Town Creative City Challenge, Northern Spurk, like if there has to be a slide of each one, just to give everybody a brief, like a background on what everything is, even if they know about it already, just to make sure that they understand what you're talking about.
So let me just clarify, you are referring to item number 4 in the Public Art Advisory Committee work plan, where it's like, we'll continue to participate in public art review processes and selection panels. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, just only because if they're enrolling or having to decide what ALT they want to be a part of and all that, this would give them a nice visual of what public art does, or what their role is and what projects they're already working on. Does that make sense? And if there's time for it, but I feel like that could be a brief 30 seconds on each thing.
I think, Joan, is this the place we also add that the policy work that's going to need to happen this year? Because we do have some policy work that's going to need to happen this year, as well as I've actually drafted a policy work plan for MAC related to public art for the next 3 years, because we have some more maintenance, not conservation, but we have some policy maintenance to do. This year we have a couple of policies we need to draft because we have a need for them, and we don't have policies in those areas. But we also have, I think, a need to, over the long term, revise the policies, make sure that they're consistent with the strategic racial equity action plan, the new comp plan, and just also kind of dust the cobwebs off them, because they were adopted last, 14 years ago now. And so I think they've served us well, but they need some updating. And so in 2022 and 2023, I'd like to do more of an update on the whole document, but we do have some policies to do this year too. And one of those coincides with the portable collection, which I think I might present to MAC on this month if you guys have time.
I would say that's awesome, because I think that's work that our commissioners are hungry to do. And I think that helps to provide a path for some really meaningful work that we hear people saying that they want to be part of. Where do you see that seated? Do you see that seated in the policy ALT, or in the public art ALT, or in its own place? Or do you have any thoughts about that?
I think it could go either way. I think one of the nice things about the policy work plan from a standpoint, if you're a commissioner, is since this is work on my work plan, I will staff some of the, the legwork on it. Like, I will help make the community meeting happen. So it might be kind of good to put it in the policy committee to give them some policy work to work on, and to also grasp what is policy work, right? That's even like a thing that I think we all struggle with. What is policy work? But then also I can kind of keep the momentum going from meeting to meeting by doing some of the grunt work and scheduling if we want to do a community meeting around the topic and things like that. And so, and the panel has a lot of work to do already, and we would still bring the draft policies to the panel, but maybe this would be a good way to give. And then this could also help the policy committee understand what policy looks like and what the adoption of policies look like. So if they want to do it in an area that's not public art, then they have like a model for how it's done.
Yeah, that is meaty and awesome learning. And the fact that you're willing to steward it in a supportive way, I think would be of great interest to the policy ALT. Would it be okay then, Mary, as a takeaway for you to take a look at the policy and advocacy work plan and just think about how you might draft that in there? And if you maybe at the moment, or maybe I think Lana, this could be a conversation too with Lana as well, obviously, but
is Lana the chair?
Yes. Yeah, well, we haven't talked about that yet. Lana's hands up. No. Okay. Anyway, just kind of thinking about how does that, what is the work plan for that work? And then what does it take the place of, if anything, here? But yeah, Lisa, did you have your hand up first, or is it your hand just still up? I want to be respectful.
I did have my hand up, but it's more about the access and engagement plan. So why don't you round out your conversation here, and then I'm happy to go. Okay,
perfect. Lana?
Just wanted to share that I think this sounds great. I'm happy to connect with Mary and really appreciative of your taking some time for this. So, you know, if I'm an exec, I'm happy to step up for the chair position for policy. I do think that would make me step down from the arts and engagement, because last year I served on two alts just to figure out which one was most essential. And it feels like with just myself and Ahava on policy, I'll hone in on that one.
I'm doing one of these, Lana.
Lana, can we touch base before the MAC meeting?
Certainly, Mary. I'm happy to email you, but my schedule is pretty open, so I'll work around you.
Okay.
And could you just CC me too if you reauthor that? Just keep me in the loop. Not that I won't have any intent on micromanaging it. I just want to be aware.
Yes.
Okay. That's fabulous. Thank you both. Okay. Lisa, do you want to comment on the access and engagement work plan?
Sure, and I'm sorry that I didn't have a chance to comment sooner, Joan, or you gave us an opportunity to, and I didn't have a chance. But just reflecting on what our work plan, looking at the work plan, it looks very similar to last year's work plan, and just looking at this year and imagining the challenges that will still be with us this year. I wonder if we had sort of adapted last year to this idea of trying to have community-based hosts for our conversations as a part of our engagement strategy. And I noticed that's not here. And I also noticed that we're still talking about hosting like artist conversations. And I think one thing we recognized as the access engagement team is if we weren't able to provide resources to artists, it was a hard ask to take a lot of their time. But I think we could, as a team, sort of look at, you know, the question about how to ask artists questions and how to facilitate conversation that is less of a capacity drain for artists might be a smart strategy. But I hate to lose that idea of, even if we can't be in community spaces, to try and do the outreach to community spaces that the Arts Commission needs to do. So I don't know. I feel like we need to lighten maybe the emphasis on the organized conversations that we probably won't be able to have until later in the year anyway, and maybe try to re-engage on, you know, being strategic about looking around the city for arts organizations to literally present, or not present, but be present, excuse me, at this meeting, and to have an opportunity to hear about the commission and for us to hear from them what they feel and what they are needing, if that makes sense. And I'm really happy to hear from everybody else what their ideas are on that, because I'm only speaking for myself, not for the whole team.
Yeah, I will just say that this was my way to try to start to have this dialogue, Lisa. at the end of the day, I think your team needs to decide what that work plan is and how it fits into, you know, the goals that we're trying to achieve. So make the changes. Secondly, make the changes as you see fit and be prepared to describe to us the reasons why. You know, not the reasons why you made the changes, but the reasons why you have identified this as something that you wish to do for this year. Does that make sense? Which will be easy to do. And I also want to just remind that you are welcome to put together what I would probably describe as a modest budget request. If you feel that it's important, we can make the ask. We just have to, you know, be able to describe how it's going to be utilized and what it's going to be utilized and what for. It's not complicated. And then worst case scenario, we get a no. But please feel supported in doing that. Okay. Any other questions or comments about that? That's great. Lana?
I guess my last question on that, sorry, Joan, is that I believe the last standing members of that commission might be Mandy and myself. Is that accurate? And
I thought Crystal was also on.
Oh yeah, Crystal Brinkman. Sorry. You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have forgotten that.
Well, that's all right.
Thank you, Janae.
And we do have 2 more people coming. And I want to get them seated as quickly as possible. Even if they decide they want to bounce around or make a change, they need to choose. And having at least a drafted work plan is going to be really helpful. So do you all feel okay about the timeline of March being when we formally adopt 2021 work plans, knowing that we will have lost a quarter, but hey, like this is the way it's going to be. And if we get it done, it's going to be a good step in the right direction. Does that feel like an okay? So it means that everybody has to meet once between February and March, make decisions, and have their chair bring it forward in exec for us to approve and move forward to the formal adoption. Okay. Any questions about that?
No, I don't mind being part of that either.
Oh, good.
You know, to help bring something to a closure. Yeah, I don't mind. So.
We welcome anything you are willing to do. Thank you, Janae. Mary?
Just a couple of things. I think as people put together their work plans, they need to keep in mind kind of the election cycle and also the trial cycle. But I mean, the nice thing about the election cycle is I know, for example, that you had as part of your holding meetings in the community plan, you were hoping you could get council members to come to those. And as it is an election year, they'll probably be interested in talking to our constituents. You know, it might be a chance to also not talk about public safety issues and other things that they have to talk about all the time.
That's really good feedback. Let's leverage that. It's a year for them to really show up. So let's leverage it. I think that's great advice. Not to minimize what you just said, Mary, but just like the bottom line is that they're going to be more inclined to show up this year than maybe other years. So let's figure out what to do with that. Janae?
This is to follow up Mary's, what Mary just said. Now, is that also council members who are candidates? Or is that also what you're opening the invitation for MAC, or you're talking only fresh new council members that get their seats?
I'd be down to talk to candidates. Are you kidding me? I mean, I don't know about you all or what our, you know, how we want to present, but I mean, come pitch. Why should we vote for you?
Yeah.
Well, so remember, you can't hold a candidate forum, right? And you can't hold discussions about the election, but anybody can come to your meetings. And
we can invite people to describe their art, you know, arts policies and their arts platform, like what they plan to do. You have to be super careful about how that starts to look like. Okay, good. Participating in the election, just be careful. And then we can also ask questions. If you have questions, we can get clarity on those things, but. Okay.
Thank you.
Good sound advice. Thanks, you guys. All right. And then, okay, so we've talked about policy, work plan. That ALT could use some love. just some more, there's just 2 people on it. So, oh, I'm sorry, Lisa, go ahead. You're muted. Sorry, Lisa.
Sorry for the waste of time. Mary, I'm thinking since that idea interested us and it seems like an opportunity for folks that they might jump at, maybe the proper strategy would be for us to just, this isn't a forum, but to make sure we could potentially ask for statements or have a candidate answer 3 questions or something like that before they would come and share that information, which isn't a discussion and it doesn't give them the floor, but it gives council members the idea of what their position is or not. You know what I'm saying? Like, is there a way to thread that needle? Like you said, we have to be careful. What does careful look like and how could we?
I don't know this. I don't know this part of the law in depth. And so I think that's the kind of thing we need advice on.
Yeah.
I think it'd be smart for us to get the advice we need, just so we, so we don't guess or shoot in the dark.
So I think if somebody wants to send, like maybe your committee, Lisa could talk about it and then send a couple questions to Tina and she could run them by the clerk.
I actually that would probably fall in policy where we could, not that we wouldn't welcome, if anybody has any suggestions, but I think like, what are 3 questions, right? That we could just advance to everyone who's running for a seat on city council for this coming year. And we, we also wouldn't necessarily have to have a big discussion about that collectively. It might just, being that we serve constituents that have arts priorities, like this is a way for us to understand where people are coming from and where their values are and where they're, how they might prioritize issues for arts organizations and artists in the city. Janae?
That would also help in our initiative to be seen, they would know already that MAC is interested in what they know or what they feel about art in the city. Yeah, that'd be great. Let's see who responds. Okay.
I know, right? Noted. You're funny. Okay, so, all right. So the last piece about the work plan is just executive. We know we're going to meet. We know we're going to advance a work plan for the entire commission for 2021. That's pretty meaty. We're going to seat all of our commissioners in their respective ALT teams. There's some other kind of thorny ones here. Generating a plan to advocate for inclusion in the city's arts working group. That's picking up again, I should say. Thinking about how we do that. So I think next month we might want to talk about that and see if there's any traction, and I can work with Mary on that in between and keep you updated as needed. Generating a plan with clearly defined outcomes for a retreat in Q2 potentially could be something else that we might want to think about doing that we didn't do last year for obvious reasons, but it might be worth doing if we can think of what we really want to get out of that time. If we had time together from March, April, May, June, I think it is, whatever those next 3 months are. Advancing all of the monthly agendas for the year, that's work that falls on exec's shoulders. Supporting ALTs for the completion of their 2020 work plans. So checking in, obviously having representation from each of those ALT teams, and public art advisory is helpful in that way, that we make sure that people are able to be successful. And then delegating the creation and completion of an end of year report. That was something that we had on our list from last year that I would like to see happen this year if possible. And it kind of goes hand in hand with asking policy to create a 1 sheet of our bios, headshots, seat, ward, et cetera, for us to send to all of our elected and staff. And we're asking policy to get that done in Q1. So we might want to make that ask to our new commissioners, because I think literally Ahava has a great draft that's like ready to go, and we just have to plug in the newbies. So Jeff, if you're listening, headshot and bio. And we'll ask Mari for one too. So, okay. All right, I think that's it for the 2020 work plan. Is there any other questions? It's just we'll get it done. We'll kick that work off at our general meeting, and then I'll leave it to you all to let me know if you need anything. I may, depending on my workload, and you can let me know if this is intrusive or weird, but I may attend all of the ALT meetings just this time, just to be available to answer questions and just to, sort of understand where people are at, and also maybe provide some increased capacity where it's needed. Does anyone have any opinions about that? And I'm totally open if that seems like a kind of a micromanaging move, or if that feels helpful. Mm-hmm. Nothing. Okay, crickets.
Sounds nice, Joan. If you're willing to give the time, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, I'll do my best to do that. Okay, let's see. Where are we? I apologize.
Agenda for.
Oh, yes. Okay. All right. I'm way too far up. So the agenda, thank you, Lisa, is here. How are we doing on time? We're good. Okay. I'm dropping it in the chat now. I made a couple of changes. If you can look in the chat, one of the things that I put at the top of our meeting is a Black History Month dedication. I'm not sure if we'd like to do this. It would require asking anyone, to just do a little research and maybe just give some storytelling, take some time, hold some space for Black. Yes, Janae!
I guess I will do that.
Thank you. Okay, so Janae, it's whatever you want it to be. A couple minutes, just let's help us to hold some space for that, and thank you for offering to do that. Okay, and then we're going to welcome new commissioners. I kind of feel like before we do all of our introductions and updates and things, like it would just be really nice to just be like, Jeff and Mari, you're here. Welcome. Do you want to say a few words and just give them a really, really warm welcome, and then move into our introductions of all of us, and any brief updates we might have, staff introductions, guest introductions, and corrections for minutes for January. Does that all sound good? That'll take about 15 minutes or so. Janae?
Do you have any expected guests?
No, I mean, not at the moment. I'm not made aware of any, but we've made a little bit of ruckus these past 2 months, so we may be joined by someone. It'd be nice. It'd be nice if we were. But not that I'm aware of. Anyone else aware of any guests coming for our meeting next week? Okay. Good question. All right. Any other questions or comments just about the first part of the meeting? Okay. And then I am missing, let's see, I'm sorry. Tina, the exchange that we had on email today, could you drop that renewed agenda in the chat really quick for me? Could you copy and paste it by chance?
Oh, sure. Yeah, just a sec.
Yeah, because Mary has some significant work that she would like to take some time with. And Mary.
Well, I think it's up to you. I mean, you were part of the panel meeting, I think. It would be good for you to think about what you think. I mean, the permit discussion was good.
Yeah.
The portable collection stuff was good. Do you want those full presentations? The 2021 update, do you want those full presentations? Or do you want one of them? How much time do you have?
Okay.
Which one do you think, both
So
the
the
portable collection and the permits discussion set the stage for decisions you're going to be making later this year.
Right. I think it might be one of those kind of summary opportunities with some digestible bits that then can also be maybe discussed further down the road. And I would love to just, if you want to just chat about how we approach this, it might be great, because I don't want to deprive anybody of, there's a lot of robust work happening in public art. And, we had a 90-minute meeting that was filled with like really engaging discussion this past meeting. So there's just a lot of work happening that I think that the commission would be interested in knowing about a little bit more than just our, what we have done typically in consent agenda. So I don't want to make more work. I also don't want to make work. And so
also have, the portable collection one is not as time sensitive as the permit one. The permit guidelines have to be revised in the coming month in order for them to come out and in a timely way for people to apply for the permits. So we could do, if you wanted to do the portable collection one in March, we could do that in March.
Yeah, I think, and when we say portable collection, what we mean by that is that the city owns a number of artworks that are not objects in the built environment, that are actual works of fine art and sculpture and other things that are becoming, some of them, obscure. And, you know, and some of them are like really, you know, really celebrated. So there's just a variety in the collection. It's really a huge variety of things. So understanding how to manage that collection and decisions of what to let go and what to keep and how to let it go. And so that's what that all means. It's pretty involved, but it's work that's going to be happening this year. So I would say, yeah, my instinct would be to save that conversation for another day, and maybe give a summary about the permitting process, if that's okay with you, Mary, and then maybe a summary just about the 2021 plan, and just kind of keep it brief about what that is, that project. And okay, great. So really quickly, Tina's getting it there. So on the agenda, I have updates and next steps re the audit committee, and I'm happy to take that item if that makes sense, and just give the same update that I gave to you all. And maybe the director Patrick will be able to join us. If so, we will add him to the agenda. Then item number 2 would be the 2021 work plan. And I think what we can just say is, here's your draft materials, make it real. And ALTs are expected to meet once between these meetings to do this work. Does that make sense? Does somebody want to take that item and present what the expectations are?
I could do it. Or do I hear anybody else? Nope. Okay.
Okay, Janae, that's you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Janae, you're doing the intro. I'm sorry, I was slow on the unmute, but I'm happy to take that for the work plan.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Lana.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, and those, okay, so we'll just keep with what I had, but then we'll talk about Tina's items in the chat. Thank you, Tina. And then number 3 is filling vacancies, conversations with Minneapolis College and Perpich, deadline extension, and sort of what's available. We'll look at what Tina provides us and be able to share that like, here are the seats we have. Does anyone want to take that? I'm happy to take it because I feel kind of immersed in it, but at the same time, I'm open for someone else if they want to approach that item and facilitate that part of the discussion. Anybody? Okay, I'll take it. But please feel free to, chime in, because you guys have some inside information. We've taken maybe a little bit more time to discuss it than others. So, okay, so 3 is me. Exec nominations. That has like a specific process to just get the slate nominated that I kind of have to work out. I don't know, Lisa, you would be good at, you know that process. I don't know, not that I want you to like do the process, but would you want to, do I have to do the nominations, or can any of us, or how does that work?
My memory is, well, and we should probably just peruse quickly the bylaws, but my memory is we can advance a slate. It's always awkward when you're on the slate to advance the slate.
Right.
But yeah. It can be done. You need to advance the slate, and someone needs to, someone needs to make a motion to, to vote on the slate as presented. And then that motion, if someone seconds that motion, that carries, there can be discussion, and then you can vote on the slate. It's helpful before you vote on the slate to give an opportunity if anyone didn't, letting people know that the slate was formed on consultation with reaching out to everybody, and that as far as we know, it encompasses everyone's interest in serving. But that if there's anyone else out there that didn't have an opportunity to to say they were interested in serving yet, that there's still a moment here where they could raise their voice. And barring anyone stepping forward, which is usually what happens, no one steps forward, then we could advance the slate. I would love someone to give me, and I guess this is a Mary and Tina question. I'm trying to remember the exact language we usually do. I know we vote on the slate as a whole. It's just expedient and faster to do it that way rather than to vote on each position.
Yep. You just articulated that really well, Lisa.
Okay, well, I'm happy to do it during the meeting. That is not, I just want to make sure I'm doing it appropriately.
I think you're supposed to ask if there are any nominations from the floor. And you're
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant by saying
if there's technically ask it 3 times, which always it sounds so funny, but.
So let me just take
Are there any nominations from the floor?
Okay.
Are there any nominations from the floor? It's just like so
Lisa,
weird.
if this feels like punishment, I can totally do it.
Not at all. Not at all, Joan. It's totally fine. So if I do that 3 times, and then when no one responds, which no one will because I know how y'all roll, then basically we will say, what I don't understand is, do I offer the slate then, Mary? Like personally offer the slate, like as a nomination, and then look for a second?
Yeah.
And then we go to voting.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, I will do it. I will nominate the slate. Someone's got to second it, so someone think about that.
I'll second it.
Beautiful.
Janae's getting it done this month. I'm digging it.
And then once that's done, Joan, then you would call for a roll call vote on the slate.
Perfect. That sounds great.
And I completed a ballot, Joan, with everyone's name in those seats. So I'm going to send that with the the minutes in the agenda, so everyone can review that ahead of time, so they know and are prepared. So
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
And I had my hand up earlier. I just wanted to make sure that on the permit changes, Mary, I assume there'll be some content for us to review prior to the meeting.
It's not. It's actually not changes at this time. What Talia did at the panel meeting just briefly is she outlined the issues that they have raised over the year, that they've been like, we think this part of the process is awkward. We think this part of the process is awkward. And so she outlined them, showed pictures of those projects, and then asked some questions. One was about who is an artist. That's a big issue that we keep coming up against. And so they had discussions about each of those 3 things that have been kind of bugging them during the regular review process.
So will there be a specific motion before the MAC? No, it's just for discussion. Okay.
So she just raised these things, they discussed them, and then she is going to make some revisions.
I don't mean to digress. I wanted to know that.
Fine.
The other thing I wanted to ask about, Joan, and I don't want to add work to people's schedules that's not necessary. And maybe you've been doing follow-up with the new members, but in the past, we've tried as an exec team to reach out to new members in a buddy style system so that if they have questions about how things work or don't work, I don't know if folks who were new, who got a chance to experience that, had comments on it. Maybe it's passé now, maybe because you've been reaching out to so many people, it's not as useful as it used to be, and I'm totally happy for it to go away. I just wasn't sure if folks felt like that was still something we should be trying to do with our new people.
You know what how I would love to approach that is not to make that an agenda item, but maybe that's something that we just need to do within this group. So I am happy to be a buddy, if that makes sense. If anybody else,
I'm curious for folks who did anyone here was anyone here a buddy of someone?
Lana, you were? Okay.
Was it
I
in
was
any
not
way
a buddy,
useful?
but I had one.
Oh.
I had Hannah as my buddy, and she was a really wonderful sounding board for me early on, just getting my footing and trying to gain some context, starting in pretty fresh, onto this commission. And I think it was essential that I had somebody that I could touch base on one-on-one for things that I didn't want to take the chair's time to ask questions of. Joan has been so wonderful in giving freely of her time, but I think it was a nice, useful resource to have a secondary sounding board. I think that could also be modeled you know, in a style of communication beyond a buddy system, if we want to, you know, say that's passe and we're not doing that anymore. I think maybe a format for outreach, if we don't do a buddy system for new commissioners, I found very helpful.
I would also, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, let's keep the buddies. Like, if it worked.
I would also say I felt very, well, more than included. It was like I got some background information about how this moves and what the tone was, you know, before I became the chair because of the buddy system. And it also gave me some, you know, it gave me a personable connection with someone else that was on the commission that I had not known or had that personal connection with. So it's like a networking tactic also. So I do feel, I know Jeff is here with us tonight. So even him listening in on the fact that there was a buddy system, this could be a great time to ask what he feels and if he's interested in getting a buddy, you know.
Yeah, it's my turn. Yeah, so I would say yes, I would be very interested in a buddy. I had it in my head to write an email to a couple of folks and just start that relationship, but I just didn't get to it. So yeah, if it's a formal system, informal system, I think it would be very helpful. And lastly, I do have to run. I have a 6 o'clock, but appreciate getting on and excited about the meeting next week. But yes for buddy system. In closing.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks, Jeff.
I just want to recognize that we're overtime. So
yeah, I might have to run too unless we're wrapping in the next couple minutes because I have a 6 as well.
Same. So the last item is the ALT seats. I need someone to just explain ALT once more, the action learning teams, and that the expectation is that everybody choose either an ALT or the Public Art Advisory Council to be a part of their year's worth of work. Does anybody want to just give an overview about what those teams are really quick, and the expectations, so that we need to get our new people seated, but we're available. Does that make sense? Just putting it on the, because I know, and I want to say that Ellie is going to be moving to public art. So that's one thing to know, that, some people are going to be making some changes. So we'll get that done in March, but we'll make the announcement in February. Sound okay?
Yes, and I can make the announcement if no one else wants to.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you, Janae. Okay, and then last, will just be Mary and I can do a little bit of work offline about how to position the updates that she's going to be providing and where they come in this agenda too. I'm sensitive that she's a staff person and we're asking her to go last, so maybe it makes sense to put her a little higher up the chain, but we can talk about it.
I have no life. It's a pandemic.
I got a little bit of a life. My mom just opened up my door and gave me a look like, where's dinner?
Oh, wait, it might be my birthday. I think it's my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
It's your birthday.
February? Let's see. No, it's not my birthday. It's the day before my birthday. So totally free. I can hang out as long as you need me to.
Okay, that's awesome. Happy birthday. Does anybody have anything else that they need from this group? Really great job today, you guys. I know we're getting through a real bunch, a lot of stuff, so you all are so appreciated. So have a great rest of your evening, and we will see you next week on Wednesday. Feel free to reach out anytime.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.